Yeah, he's the new boxing champ, new heavyweight boxing champ. What? We also have a new wrestling heavyweight champion of the world. Have we ever had a wrestling heavyweight champion of the world? No. Okay, well, who is it? The Golden Greek, yeah, of course. Hey, look, I gotta go. Okay, see ya, bye.
Hey, this month's top headline, Nazi uniforms banned in 3 states.
Uniforms banned, death squads permitted.
This measure was prompted by the many confrontations with members of other political groups.
The decree will be warmly welcomed by all who have a sense of political decency. Upon superficial examination, one might not dispute the validity of this decree. But why is a double standard being used here?
A step of submission to the Marxist Bolshevik dictatorship.
I'm Indy Neidell.
I'm Spartacus Olsson.
This is The Rise of Hitler. Welcome to the Weimar Wire, covering all of June's jolly jubilations, jealous japes, and germane jousts.
Germain starts with a G, not with a J.
Before we hit June, here's a brief recap of May. May Day, International Workers' Day, revealed stark divides within the left, leading to violence in the streets.
An unlikely coalition between 3 bitter enemies, the Social Democrats, the Nazis, and the Communists, brought down the regional government in Saxony.
Tensions also escalated between the Thuringian Minister of the Interior and Education, a Nazi Party member, and his federal counterpart over police appointments and school prayers.
And a Frenchman set out a radical new vision for Europe, which got a lot of approval, but also outspoken critics on the far left and the far right.
Okay, now this month's top headline. A ban on wearing party uniforms. I mean, that's going to be a big hit to the National Socialist movement. What's that all about?
That's a good question, but as always, we're getting ahead of ourselves. First, here are June's other big headlines. Max Schmelling becomes world heavyweight boxing champion.
The Rhineland is free. Or is it?
Shock elections in Saxony with no possible governing coalition in sight.
Chancellor Brüning and his national government continue to navigate stormy seas, but their boat is taking on water, with some jumping ship. Okay. The crisis Brüning's government faces this month is the same one that has been festering since the beginning of the year. It is the unemployment insurance plan and the budget deficit. To sort out these problems, Brüning and his cabinet present a slew of measures at the beginning of June. The Nazis have this to say.
Only 1% of the total tax revenue is contributed by big capital. Meanwhile, to balance the Reich's finances, the government now burdens the working people with an increase in unemployment insurance contributions by 220 million, savings on unemployment insurance by 150 million, and emergency sacrifices and bachelor tax together by 350 million. The German people must make emergency sacrifices while the stock market bandits remain unscathed and the department store's Jews triumph. The Communists echo the sentiment.
This government takes with both hands from all those who work and suffer hardship. It knows no consideration, no sentimentality, no conscience. It snatches the last piece of bread from the mouths of the unemployed. It plunders the civil servants and employees, and moreover, mocks them as people in secure positions.
Not only are the rates for unemployment insurance to be raised and the benefits cut for young and seasonal workers, there's also to be an emergency tax, the sacrifice, levied on all permanently salaried employees.
On top of all this, 100 million marks are supposed to be saved by severe austerity measures.
The Reich Minister of Finance, Dr. Moldenauer, explains. An increase in indirect taxes is only feasible within a modest range. Adding new taxes to the economy is impossible. Thus, the idea came up to utilize those with fixed salaries for national assistance after the budget had been reduced as far as possible.
While Brüning and his cabinet stand firmly behind this new proposal, there is the problem, as the Social Democrats inquire. Most importantly, where is the majority backing for all this? Naturally, the Communists, Nazis, and Social Democrats, as well as a bunch of smaller parties, all oppose this.
Yet, as things drag on, rumblings begin to emanate from governing coalition parties. As you may remember from our April episode, The Conservative National People's Party split right down the middle on whether to support the government. This month, the DVP, the German People's Party, also expresses reservations. This is doubly awkward since Finance Minister Mollenauer, the man responsible for the new policy proposals, is a member of that party.
By mid-month, his own party begins to turn on him, as the Vossische Zeitung reports on the 16th. The German People's Party is engaged in sharp criticism of Dr. Moldenhauer's tax plans. If the Reich finance minister they appointed cannot handle the tasks, they must have the courage to replace him with someone else. Such language has never been heard in People's Party meetings.
As some of the keen-eyed amongst you may have noticed, in a way, this brings us full circle. The Social Democrats explain. The crisis of the Brüning government arises like the crisis of the Müller government. It has again been brought about by the German People's Party, and over the same issues with the Müller government. It concerns the restructuring of unemployment insurance and the balancing of the budget.
Worse for Moldenhauer, the Reichsrat, the Assembly of State Ministers, also flatly rejects the new proposals on the 18th. Eventually, Moldenhauer, facing relentless opposition in both Reichstag and Reichsrat, succumbs to the pressure and resigns. Yet, the Brüning government proves more resilient than some thought.
Hermann Dietrich, Minister of Trade and Commerce from the German Democratic Party, takes the post and quickly presents a revised proposal. The emergency payment is limited in scope. Now it only affects bureaucrats and at a lower rate.
Unfortunately for Brüning, however, the German People's Party still refuses to play ball and announces that if any sort of emergency tax payment is levied at all as part of the new measures, it will immediately exit the government and switch to the opposition.
Brüning does finally see a glimmer of hope on June 28th when at least the Reichsrat accepts his proposal.
Yet whether a majority in the Reichstag will also do so is an entirely different question. Invoking Article 48, the dissolution of Brüning's government, and the passing of the new legislation by President Paul von Hindenburg's emergency executive powers seems more likely than ever.
But on to happier tidings. The Rhineland is free.
Hey.
Or is it?
Today, the last French flag flying over the Rhineland is lowered, and the last French soldiers leave their barracks and begin their march home. This, for most Germans and their political parties, is cause for celebration.
The Conservatives described the atmosphere of the moment. Once the flag was lowered, one could read from every face, "Thank God, finally free." Already in the early morning hours, a joyful yet solemn and serious atmosphere prevails.
The Liberals see it as a sign of German solidarity. The last tricolor sinks, a pleasing sign of how strongly the feeling of unity and solidarity affected unoccupied Germany.
The Social Democrats view it as a triumph. The German people have their day in history on June 30th, 1930. The German people can congratulate themselves that their self-confidence and unwavering faith in the future have achieved one of the finest victories.
The French have a more cautious view of things. The Temps expresses the hope that the sacrifices made by the Allies will not have been in vain. It is now up to the German people to justify the trust placed in them.
But of course, not everyone is jubilant or even cautiously optimistic about the developments. The fringes of the German political spectrum, the Nazis and the communists, agree that the Rhineland is anything but free for the communists.
The tricolor was lowered and the black-red-gold flag was hoisted. The French or German flag, two different colors of the same system. Symbols of the enslavement of the proletariat in all countries, except our Russian brothers, over whose heads the red flag, the flag of real liberation, flies more proudly than ever. While the Nazis agree that the Rhineland is not free, they have different reasons as to why this is the case.
The lie of the freedom of the Rhine. We are not free because the Rhineland is internationalized. We are not free as long as Versailles exists. We are not free as long as the parties that signed Versailles and the Young Dictate rule in Germany. Not freedom, the 58 more years of slavery. We will only be free when the Young Plan is destroyed, just like the disgrace of Versailles, when we have space for 100 million Germans. Now, forward on the Rhine. Raise the swastika banner high.
In any case, one thing is certain. The exodus of French troops from the Rhineland clearly marks the beginnings of a new era for the German Republic.
It actually happens 5 years earlier than the Treaty of Versailles stipulates and is a visible and tangible benefit of the Young Plan, as well as being a strong indication of an improvement in Franco-German relations, something of a triumph for Germany.
In New York, there is also a German triumph this month.
Max Schmelling becomes the heavyweight champion of the world since 1928. With his switch to the heavyweight class and claiming German title weeks later, Schmelling has been a contender for the world heavyweight title, vacant since Gene Tunney's retirement that same year.
On June 12th, his moment arrives. In Yankee Stadium, in front of 79,222 people, he faces off against Jack Sharkey. Sharkey is a formidable opponent and is the bookmaker's favorite.
They seem to be right. The judges call the first round a draw, but the second and third rounds go unanimously to Sharkey.
Round 4 begins with Sharkey bounding out from his corner to attack. Schmelling hits the mat after just a few seconds, but the referee does not start a count.
Instead, as the German is carried to his corner, the referee consults with the judges. Shortly after, the referee grabs Schmelling's arm and raises it in victory.
What happened? Well, apparently, Sharkey hit Schmelling with a low blow, an illegal punch, leading to his disqualification. Schmelling becomes the first European-born heavyweight champion in 33 years, the first German ever to wear the crown, and also the first ever to win by the disqualification of his opponent. Though Joe Goss did sort of win because of a foul back in 1876. You remember that, right? Mm-hmm. Though that was bare knuckle.
The Nazis also are victorious in June in Saxony.
The elections there lead to surprises on all sides. As we saw last month, an informal coalition of Social Democrats, Nazis, and Communists brought down the state government through a motion of no confidence.
On June 22nd, the new elections are held. The results? Well, let us begin with those who fare worst, and they are the parties currently in power in Berlin, the Bürgerblock.
The bourgeois bloc, as their opponents like to call them, are hit hardest. The biggest loser of all of them is the German Nationalist People's Party.
This shows how the political turbulence in Berlin last month has real consequences all throughout Weimar. It is no coincidence that all parties active in the Brüning government lose ground.
And where do all of their votes go? Well, a lot go to the Nazis. Here is how the Social Democrats explain the situation.
The explanation is not solely given by the fact that the severe economic crisis promotes a tendency towards extremism. The Nazis have drawn those masses from the bourgeois parties who, by class, do not belong to the bourgeoisie. They have impacted the layers that have been proletarianized through the crisis with their primitive street socialism.
The Nazis managed to nearly triple their share of the vote, going from 5 to 14%, getting about 243,000 votes. In the last election, in 1929 actually, they also managed to triple their vote from 1.4% to 5%.
The other victor is the Communists, gaining an additional seat in the state legislature. They comment.
The National Socialists achieved the greatest numerical success. Through their demagogic and incendiary agitation and the social guise they managed to wrap around their fascist policies, they were able to win over the masses that had withdrawn their support from the old bourgeois parties.
The Social Democrats, while technically also losers, only lose one seat and remain the largest political party in Saxony with 34% of the vote. This leads us to a big problem.
As explained by the Social Democrats. After this election in Saxony, there is only one big question that remains. How can this composition lead to a government?
And their worry is warranted. The old coalition doesn't have a majority because of the lost votes, and the three parties who could make one, the Social Democrats, Nazis, and Communists, refuse to work with each other.
And the parties around the center refuse to work with the commies, are resentful of the Nazis because they brought down the last government after switching sides, and also do not want any Social Democrats in government.
This effectively makes the formation of any government in Saxony seem impossible.
You know, the Nazis did have some real bad news in June.
The movement endured hit after hit, to be honest.
Yeah.
The Weimar Wire will now give you a rough timeline of the unfolding drama.
Wait.
Everything begins in Munich on June 5th with an announcement by the Bavarian Minister of the Interior, Dr. Stutzel, empowered by the new Reich Protection Law.
Effective immediately, until further notice, all assemblies are banned where members of political organizations participate in uniform. The given reason for this sudden prohibition of uniforms is the ever-increasing political violence in the streets. This year has basically been a continuous slugfest between the Nazis and the communists. But while the new measure does hit all uniformed organizations equally, the Nazis think something differently.
We know that this pretext is just a deception of public opinion. The bourgeois government of Bavaria is once again taking a step of submission to the Marxist Bolshevik dictatorship, because in reality, this ban is only directed against the national side.
Nazi leader Adolf Hitler himself soon gives a response.
For the duration of initially 8 months, all propaganda efforts are to be concentrated on Bavaria.
The Nazis also announce a huge demonstration in protest.
To battle, the National Socialist German Workers' Party calls for a massive protest meeting to begin the forthcoming Enlightenment campaign on Saturday, June 14th at 8 p.m. in the Circus Building on Maasfeld.
Then on the 12th, though, Prussian Minister of the Interior Heinrich Wending announces to maintain public peace, safety, and order, the public wearing of the so-called party uniform of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, including its subordinate auxiliary and affiliated organizations, is prohibited within the Free State of Prussia. So, not just at assemblies, no Nazi uniforms at all in public in Prussia. Yes, in Prussia, the Nazis specifically are singled out, something they do not fail to comment on.
The uniform ban in Prussia is even more unbelievable and provocative than in Bavaria. While in Bavaria they at least try to maintain a semblance of legality, in Prussia the most blatant and brutal arbitrary rule is raging. Wending explicitly limits his order to a single party, namely the National Socialist German Workers' Party. The reason is obvious. The Reichsbahn, the Red Party Defense Force of Social Democracy, the party of Mr. Wending, should not be prevented from provoking and terrorizing the population.
This approach gets approval in the liberal press, like the Vossische Zeitung, specifically praising the fact that the Reichsbanner, a democratic organization, is exempt from the new measures.
Of course, this also raises some eyebrows. The Christian conservatives note that while it is obvious that the target of the new legislation, even in Bavaria, is the Nazis, making it explicit in Prussia could become problematic.
Later the same day that the new legislation in Prussia is passed, more news comes in from Bavaria regarding the planned Nazi protest rally. The head of the Munich police prohibits it because the insulting and repugnant language, together with the inflammatory outbursts of the National Socialist press in recent days, indicates the assembly aims solely to disparage the state government and incite disobedience against its orders. Again, the Nazis complain.
The reasons given by Police President Koch for his unconstitutional ban are absolutely inadequate and unlawful. Moreover, this police dictate is also a drastic example of the untenability of the entire democratic parliamentary system.
Then on the 14th, yet more bad news reaches the self-proclaimed Führer. That is because the Minister of the Interior of Baden, Franz Josef Wittemann, follows the Prussian example and bans Nazi uniforms as well as those of all their related organizations such as the Hitler Youth and the SA, the Nazi paramilitary organization. Then on the 15th, 150 uniformed Nazis are arrested in Berlin, in Prussia, showing that the Prussian state means business.
Two more blows land in quick succession on the 16th and 17th. First, on the 16th, the police in Berlin expand their ban. The purpose of the ban is to eliminate any expression of National Socialist tendencies from the streets of Berlin. Consequently, wearing a brown shirt is fundamentally prohibited even for individuals.
Well, this isn't brown. This is Sahara. That's tan.
It's tan.
It's tan.
Yeah.
It's tan. Second, on the 17th, Baden again follows suit, tightening regulations to also include swastika flags and any other swastika-adorned piece of clothing or accessories like armbands.
So if you do it, you'll be picked up by the heat.
The Johns.
The bulls.
The buttons.
Yet more disturbing news reaches Hitler on the 21st. The word is that Prussia is assessing whether to ban the SA, the paramilitary wing of the Nazis, altogether. That is still being assessed, though, as the month ends.
Yet, Prussia does land one more punch against the Nazis. From June 23rd, anyone caught wearing a Nazi uniform in Prussia must pay 150 Reichsmarks or spend 15 days in jail. No discussion, no exception. With the Germans' average monthly salary of 173 Reichsmark, that is a harsh punishment.
I wonder how that will work out.
We shall see soon enough. Now, on to the Weimar Wire political indicator, brought to you by Time Ghost. The elections in Saxony reveal a downward trend for the Bürger Bloc, while the Nazis and communists are still on the rise.
The current government under Brüning still suffers from internal opposition. This is nothing new. Trend moderately negative.
While the SPD does not gain any popularity, they also do not lose much. Trend neutral. And now, a bunch of questions for all you out there. You ready? Okay. Do you think the Nazi uniform ban will actually calm the streets? Will the uniform soon be banned throughout all of Germany?
Will Brüning manage to pull a rabbit out of his hat and find a majority in the Reichstag? Or will we see the dissolution of parliament, a government by presidential decree, basically an end to parliamentary rule?
Is the liberation of the Rhineland a cause for celebration? Or is it still in chains, either the chains of capitalism or the chains of Versailles?
Did Schmelling deserve to win, or do you think Sharkey should have won? Should they reschedule the fight?
Will the Nazi success story in Saxony spread to other states? And will a coalition be formed in Saxony?
We'll maybe get some answers when we return at the end of July. To help us get there, join the Time Ghost Army at timeghost.tv or patreon.com. It's the army that makes all our work possible and keeps the lights on. Until next time, Weimar Wire signing off.
Excelsior!